Welcome to Talking Pictures Trivia, the podcast in which a group of geographically challenged friends explore movies through trivia as an excuse to keep their friendships alive. I'm one of these friends and today's host, Nick, and with me is
Tom,
KJ,
and Ragnar.
For those joining us for the first time, we start off each episode with a movie quiz, as these 4 rapid-fire trivia questions will determine who earns today's trivia crown. The first question is worth 1 point, and each question after that is worth 1 more point. Then we'll follow it up with a theme discussion, this week being Unreliable Narrator. Thanks to our guest Ragnar for picking the movie for this week. Tom, tell us about today's movie.
walking up to theaters in Argentina in 2009, we would have had to choose between Papa por un Día, Return to Bolivia, Las Vueltas de los Jueves, and today's movie, The Secret in Their Eyes. KJ will be our questionnaire today. KJ, what is The Secret in Their Eyes all about?
In The Secret in Their Eyes, we follow Esposito, a man at the end of his career, retired even, thinking back on one peculiar case that he just can't shake from his mind. And we find out more about the case from his perspective, but we don't really know, is it the book we're getting? Is it the case of what actually happened? The case deals with a rape and murder of the wife of Ricardo Morales, where we find the murderer is indeed Gomez. And Gomez then goes free, and then they try to find him again. Lots of twists and turns. And then in the end, we find out that everyone is in their own little prison, and it is kind of sad.
It's time for question 1.
What is defective about the typewriter?
Locked in.
Everybody?
Hey!
Yep.
That's correct. The A key doesn't work. Points for everybody.
I like when he's typing and he's going over his manuscript and he has to manually write over every A.
Write him back in. And I think that talks to our theme a little bit about the unreliable narrator, the unreliable device that is capturing the stories. Can't quite do it right. But anyway, moving on.
It's time for question 2.
Why did Morales never catch Gomez in the train station?
Locked in.
Locked in.
Also locked in.
Wow. And just for the audience, Morales was the husband and Gomez is the killer. So let's start with Tom.
He never took the train into the city.
What did he take?
Ragnar.
He took the mule. No, I'm kidding. He took the bus.
And Nick.
He took the bus.
Uh-oh, points for everybody. Hope you got
What?
your
What do you mean
bonus
everybody?
Tom
That
knew.
answered the question.
Tom knew.
That's true.
He can take the train.
I guess so. How was the question worded?
Why did he not catch him? He didn't take the train.
Why did Morales never catch Gomez?
He never took the
station?
train.
That's fair. That's fair.
And we
Fair.
know
That's
this
fair.
because in the interview, our main character asks him, what do you take to get into the city? And he tells him.
What does he tell him?
I thought it was like the bus or something.
Yeah, the
Yes,
bus.
it
We
was
said
the
it.
bus.
We
We just
Oh, okay.
said it.
Yeah.
That's what I was
Va
debating.
A la Buenos Aires.
You know what?
en el bus
The
escolar.
one to blame here is the questionnaire.
I always
Yeah,
blame
with the
KJ.
sentence structure. I went over these with Rachel so we can share a little bit of the. All right, so don't tell her that.
Yeah. Hold on, let me text her.
Did Rachel like the movie?
She didn't see the movie. She just heard the questions.
No wonder she didn't care about the bus.
She didn't know about the bus.
It's time for question 3.
According to Pablo, what is the one thing a guy can't change about themselves?
Locked
Locked in.
in. Pablo Sandoval, who played third base for the San Diego Giants.
I know the essence,
Francisco
but I'm
Giants.
trying to think the actual word. Locked in.
Nick, what do you have?
He can't change his behavior.
Ragnar?
In one of the best scenes in the movie, I think, he can't change his passion.
Tom?
I had the same thing.
That's
He can't
fair.
change his passion.
I couldn't remember the word. I knew the essence.
Points to Ragnar and Tom. Nick, you were close. You were very close. But it was
So
the
that's
passion.
like a point or two or what?
No, because he
yeah,
said you
no
can
punches.
change like your behavior, your religion, your God.
Mhm.
He did say
this or
behavior.
that. Maybe you can change everything except your passion,
Mhm.
and then I guess the behavior associated specifically with that passion. But you can change everything else.
You can change your
man.
travel habits by not taking the train.
Exactly.
Very specifically, taking the bus. All right, question 4 for Tom.
I don't know why
It's a
this is a
bus,
thing.
wasn't
Like, what-
For years, he's gonna get pegged.
Why
on this
couldn't he
thing.
find him on the train? Because he wasn't on the train.
That's the answer to the question. He didn't take the train. That's what...
It's time for question 4.
For what reason does Morales tell Esposito to forget about the murders?
Locked in.
Locked in?
Yeah, I'm gonna say locked in.
Tom, what do you have?
They're dead. Everyone's dead. You're kind of living in the past. That that they're that way. That the killer is dead. His wife is dead. And they're just gonna be consumed with this thing that's already over.
Like the snowflakes at the end of your favorite movie?
Yeah. It's a good movie. You
The
son
Dead.
of a bitch.
Can we at least reference it for the audience?
Yeah.
Maybe I'll
It's
cut
The
that.
Dead. It was John Huston's last movie, an
Oh.
interpretation of James Joyce's The Dead. It's an excellent film. Nobody here likes it, but
I dropped out of that one.
Yeah.
I tried to watch. I got maybe like 40 minutes in. I was
Mhm.
like, no.
Nick, what do you have?
Again, I'm going to be more specific. He killed Gomez, so he doesn't have to worry about finding him.
Ragnar, what do you have?
Two good answers. Yeah. I think in this one, Tom's a little bit more correct. Anyways, he's saying, let it go because, yes, they're all dead. And your life, if you just keep turning your wheels and just thinking of all the things you could have done, should have done, that your life is just going to become only memories and no future, like his has become.
Exactly. And the episode goes to Ragnar in the last question.
But where did the
Yeah.
points go?
To Ragnar.
Correct.
Right to Ragnar. Yeah, he says, you'll wonder if you could have stopped it, the murders.
Mhm.
You'll have 1,000 pasts and no future. You'll end
Mhm.
up with only memories.
Yeah, which is where we get the conversion at that point from I fear to I love.
Yep.
Right? That's that love ends up being an act that moves us forward or propels us, and fear is merely reflection.
It was a little cheesy though, right? Because he adds the A in.
Yeah, and
Well, it's
which
tied
relates
to the
typewriter.
CSI.
I think
Is that what was CSI to you? Is that what you were referencing? CSI
a little
Buenos
cheesy
Aires?
TV writing than.
I didn't think it
movie.
was.
I'm kind of between you guys. I think there's moments in this movie where it gets cheesy. I think the movie.
Name 6.
So the moment I found the stuff where you have the interview between the head inspector Baez, I think his name was. That interview is kind of hard to watch. It's kind of cheesy. It's I think his name's Baez.
The head. One thing I struggle with the movie is like, why is this lawyer investigating? I don't know. And then so it's hard for me to remember who's the counselor.
So there's one detective who initially arrests 2 construction workers and beats them up.
Yes. Okay,
he later during the
coup era.
Yeah, well, it's not really so much. I guess the coup era.
Well, because there was a coup going on, and so he was informing on the insurgents.
Yeah, what they had done was in 1976 under the Isabella Peroni government was like basically hire a bunch of degenerates to kill left-wing guerrillas, and so our killer ends up being one of those. The guy who's in charge of that, I believe his name is Baez. The scene where they go to him to say, you let this guy out, and he sort of thrills in doing it. I found that to be a little melodramatic. I think it was a scene in which it was meant to kind of get your goat. to kind of toy with your emotions. And I think the fact that it ends with the killer walking into the elevator and whipping out a gun and loading the gun in front of them just to let you know how powerless they feel, blah, blah, blah. And the gun also has this kind of phallic thing to it. Like all
which
of
is
that.
which refers back to the scene where he literally takes it out.
Takes it out. Yeah. Like that's a little much. And even in the scene where he exposes himself and hits her seems too easy, right? There's something pat about
But
it.
doesn't that fit his character that he's like a little unhinged?
Yeah, it does. He's also been fairly good at avoiding the authorities up to this point. He's baited so easy. And we're later told that he's so smart that that's why they hire him to fight gorillas.
And this also brings up the topic of the week, which is the unreliable narrator. So my question is that what happened, or is that what makes a good book? Is that how Esposito either wants to remember it or has embellished his memories? What version are we getting? A real version? Like, is that how that interrogation went? Everybody came off so cool, especially, what's her name? Especially Irene.
I took the whole movie as fact, so I think I just blew up the topic of unreliable narrator because I just was like, this is how it happened. I didn't even like question it, so I think I'm a little off base here.
Join another Talking Studios production, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games. Text-based adventure games were computer games from before computers had graphics. The game uses text to describe a scene, and the player types back how they want to interact with the game. I'll read the text from the computer, and my co-host will feed me commands. This season, we're playing through The Hobbit from 1982 on the ZX Spectrum. Here's a quick sample.
I thought a lot about our first command, and I think it should be no print because we don't want to print things as we're going along.
I think by default, it's not going to print. And even if I did type print, where is it going to print to? 1982?
I would imagine if we go west, we're going to be south of the troll, right? Just south of the troll land.
Yeah, let's try it.
You go west. The troll's clearing. The visible...
Oh, we died.
All right.
The troll saw us and killed us.
So I think we have to say the answer to the riddle then.
The answer is dark.
Say dark, I think.
Talk to what?
Gollum.
Say Gollum dark.
You talk to Gollum. Thorin says, hurry up.
And we died.
And we died.
So we went northeast last time. So let's go southwest.
You go southwest. Visible exits are north, northwest. You see the valuable golden ring.
Oh.
We're ending it here. That's
Wait.
perfect.
All
That's
right.
perfect.
Limited Lexicon, coming to your podcatcher and YouTube in late 2022 by Talking Studios.
Yeah, I don't know why that. Yeah, I lean towards with Nick on this one. There are some parts maybe, but not sure what scene led you to believe that some parts like this interrogation could be unreliable.
Well, I'm glad you asked, Ragnar. So first of all, we start the movie with him writing a book. So right off the bat, we're saying he's remembering these things. He's writing them down. He's telling us a narration. Then the other, like the big evidence to me was he remembers how it must have been for Pablo when Pablo died, but he couldn't have known that. So that's a very, very telling to me that the movie is saying, look, some of these scenes are Esposito either guessing, remembering in a more fantastic way, especially that Pablo scene, but also, right, Morales says he can't remember if it was lemon or honey in his tea the morning of the murder. So that's, again, the movie telling us, here's some vocabulary you can use to evaluate the movie or interpret the movie. Their goodbye on the train platform, Irene says, that's not how it happened. But then you're kind of like, oh, wait, maybe.
No, I thought she
was
said,
toying with him. Like,
Right.
Yeah, I thought she was actually validating that is how it happened, but they weren't open with their feelings about each other at that point.
But even so, then she's the unreliable, like, right? Because she says that couldn't have been how it happened because if you felt that way, you wouldn't have left on the train. So again, there's a sense of doubt in all these narrative points from somebody.
I see your point. I mean, like, just to the one with Irene, like, she has a very playful personality towards him, and I don't know if it's because I wasn't busy reading the subtitles for the audience. I speak Spanish, so
Showing
I
off.
one of my many
I
languages.
got a few words in there too, you know.
Hola, me llamo Ragnar. No, but like she was saying that like, is that how it happened? But she was saying it more like, is that how it happened? Was I really that
Yeah, I
foolish?
think
Like,
she was
it was
being
more
like toying with him, you know.
exactly. Yeah. I
Okay.
think so.
How about the scene where Morales recounts how he killed Gomez, and we see it in the movie like we saw
True.
every other scene.
True.
So I think a lot of
true.
these are hit or miss, whether they.
No, but he
happen that
didn't kill
way.
him. He didn't kill him.
Well,
But we
that's
saw him
KJ's
kill him.
point.
Right.
KJ's point is like, we saw the images on the screen.
If they rolled credits at that point, then that would have been the story.
I mean, I'm not, this is to your point. I'm not sure if I agree with 100%, but it is towards your point. He does then say, choose wisely. Because memories are all we have. Like,
and that's why like it feeds into that theme of 1,000 past and no future. He's like, just gone over it so many times in his mind, he can't remember what happened.
Right.
So then it's got to be this version.
Interesting.
I think that relates to, you know, the kind of the themes that the movie is articulating more directly, which is that the past is something that can be torturous, right? That really just hangs on you if you live in the past. And it could be that the past is unreliable, even if it's not something we can recount factually. The past is unreliable because it swallows you up if you allow it. And you have to have this kind of, you know, kind of stoic resolve of living in the present, and living in a kind of forward direction, which is the irony of the end, is that this old man finally finds the courage to go out with this woman who he's loved for in excess of 25 years, which ends up being the forward motion. It's a movement away from writing the stories of the past, which you cannot rely on, right? Because ultimately he wants to find justice, and justice has already been served, but it's a sickly and ugly justice that has killed off not only the person who needs to be killed off, the criminal, but the person for whom justice is supposed to be some sort of reward or some sort of salve, the husband. And so that's how I see the past as being unreliable, not so much in can we recount the facticity of the past, but the past cripples us, it consumes us, and only in our resolution to no longer type the past, but to take our pen and write the present into the text of the past can we move forward and find happiness.
So in a rare twist of fate, I'm going to support KJ's unreliable narrative with a mention of a specific scene. The one where he thinks what must have happened to his colleague who got killed, because all the pictures were turned upside down. So that's one where clearly he doesn't have proof. He does say that though, too, that like that one, he's like says, this is my interpretation. So that wasn't like hidden, but there's an example of, and again, I don't know if it's unreliable or him just projecting what he thinks happened.
Because you see him earlier testing the pictures. He's trying to knock him over, you know, and then that's just planting the seed in the audience's mind. And then he does say, like, I don't know what happened. This is what could have happened, in an effort to kind of like try to get this guy to tell him what he's not telling him.
That's another great example. The opening scene is him trying to write the book, and then we cut to the murder. And then we see him go back to Irane when they're older, and he's like, I can't start this book. So in my head, that's him trying to remember or recount what the murder must have been like. So even that's probably not how it happened. It's how he's trying to describe it for his book so that the audience can. So I thought right from the very beginning, that's what the movie is telling us. That's the vocabulary this movie's giving us to watch the movie.
Yeah. I know. I see what you're saying. Yeah. Yeah.
There's another scene where Esposito asks Irene if she's ever looked at him from a different angle. And in that scene, again, I thought they were trying to say, hey, look at this movie from a different angle, or this movie is looking at this narrative from a different angle every time with these unreliable narrators.
I thought that was one of those scenes where they got interrupted, right? So you thought they were going to have like a deeper conversation, and then I think the colleague walks in the door and
Well, he invites the colleague
Invites
in.
him,
yeah. Oh, that's
'Cause
right.
he
Yeah.
wanted to
So
talk about something else, and she
And
thought
she was,
She's-
yeah, they were
yeah,
gonna,
she was like
never mind.
thinking
Leave
that
the
she was
door
gonna
open.
get-
We're good.
yeah.
That's an interesting, that very Christopher Nolan-esque, Inception kind of thing.
Yeah.
Interesting. But I do want to say, Tom, to what you were saying earlier, what I do think is the heart of the movie, and I think it's very important. The husband, the survivor, if you will, the victim is survived by the husband. I think he knows that he's giving up his life, and he does it willingly. To get justice for his wife that he will never get over. He will never move on. He knows that, so this is all he can do. And I think the scene, because when I said earlier there was two love stories, it was this love story, a pure love that was shattered, and then this delayed love that was delayed by fear of asking her out and making a move or what have you. And when he tells him, when the two stories meet truly, is when he tells him, look at me, I have no future, I only have memories, it's an empty life, you don't do that. And I think that to me is the heart of the movie, finding a way to move forward. Like you were talking about, fear is something that holds us back, that keeps us in the past, and love in this case is something that propels us forward. And that's when he turned fear into love by adding the A, and therefore achieving what the guy couldn't because of the crime. So I think that's a very important point that you made, and I think it's the heart of the movie.
Yeah. And I think going to KJ's unreliable narrator thing and connecting it to that observation that Ragnar you just made, he often, I think a lot of the things that are imagined that he can't possibly know are of the shattered couple, or scenes like you were mentioning, KJ, of how this must have been for that couple whose wife died. And he, I think, is imposing his own feelings upon that relationship, his feelings for Irina, and so this kind of this love that you'll never give up, right? He tells the man whose wife is murdered that he's never seen kind of this love in him, which is a kind of experience he wants to have. However, it turns out, I think, again, speaking to KJ's point, that sort of attraction he must have for this man and this affection he has ends up being this kind of dead end, right? That feeling he felt he understood, he actually doesn't really, right? He doesn't really understand that, and trying to write it isn't really doing him any favors because he doesn't understand it. The truth of it is, it's a love that leads to no future, as you said, Ragnar. And so I think it is an unreliable narrator situation in the sense of he's imagining his own emotional state in this relationship, and really he can't really capture that, right? He doesn't really know what that experience is like, even though the movie is kind of the movie initially is indicating that he can have that experience. And so I imagine, and this is kind of maybe my headcanon, I imagine he, in the end, once he gets together with Irina, breaks off the novel, right? I think that is over.
100%.
Yeah, I think that writing the past is something you can't do. To speak to KJ's point again about the unreliable narrator, right? An unreliable narrator is somebody who cannot write the past. We cannot rely on this person to script the past. And he's not going to be an unreliable narrator anymore. And so the door closes.
Yeah. Continuing the references to the unreliable narrator, one that definitely jumped out at me was at the end. I did not predict the actual twist, but I did know something was off with Ricardo Morales's explanation of what happened to Gomez, or what he did to Gomez, because it was out of character for him. So I did catch. My spidey senses did go off, and the fact that he was like, I took him and I threw him in a trunk and I shot him to death. It didn't fit any of the prior dialogue. I didn't catch the big twist that like he was holding him prisoner per se. I can't take full credit for that, but that one really jumped out at me as like, hey, this is not factual.
I actually want to ask you guys about that scene and talking Tom about headcanon. I've seen this movie 5 times. As I said, I'm a massive fan. And I'm not 100% sure what he does with that discovery. Does he tell somebody? Does he try to write, lawfully, say, hey, you can't do that and report him? Or does he let it go?
I think he completely lets it go. I think this is a time he sees that Morales has a prisoner, right? Gomez is literally a prisoner, but Morales is also a prisoner to the past. And then I think Esposito realizes he's a prisoner of regret. And that's what lets him then go to Irene and try to start that life.
Yeah, I'm in the camp that he just moves on and says, life's too short and I'm going to focus on what's important to me.
Yeah.
I wasted too much time already.
Maybe he sees there in that moment how horrible, the names are Morales's existence is,
He did promise him life.
Yeah, he did say. You said life.
Mm-hmm.
I like that take. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, I agree. Well, if you think of what does it do for the themes of the film and for the characters for him to tell, right? It means that he hasn't learned the thing he has to learn, which is let the past go, right? He's still seeking justice or what have you. I think in the American remake, the Julia Roberts character, who is Gomez, I think kills him in the end. I think it ends with her finally being able to let go.
Fact check.
Wait, Gomez as the prisoner?
Oh wait,
Morales.
Who's the prisoner? I'm sorry.
Gomez.
Okay. Julia Roberts plays Morales.
Okay.
In the American version, and it's her daughter who's killed, as opposed to a wife or something like that.
Increase the tension.
Yeah, it doesn't. It's a bad movie.
It has to be. It has to be a wife because that's the kind of love he's looking for. It has to be a wife. So making it a child is just it kind of
unravels the film, right?
Yeah,
the film is kind of well knit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, to unravel this episode, congratulations again, Ragnar, for winning this episode.
Yay!
Thank you. It's about time I got to win.
Oh God, I was so close. Just got to get on that bus and make it happen next time.
They wouldn't find you at the
They
train
would
station.
no.
How did Ragnar win? He showed up on the episode.
He got the most points.
Mm-hmm.
Wait! I just want to point out one small detail and see if you guys got it, because Elke's my wife. She got it like the first time she saw it. It took me 5 viewings to see it. But remember how Espinino, whatever, the main character, tracks down the killer by looking at the pictures, and he's always looking at the victim throughout. And that was really cool. And then in present day, so to speak, when the main character is talking to Irene, and they're looking through old pictures of their parties. He's always
her
looking at
engagement party.
Yeah.
He's
Yeah.
looking right at
He's
her.
always
yes,
looking
I caught
at
that
her.
immediately.
It took me 5.
Immediately,
was like,
I saw
how'd you miss that?
Yeah, no, I saw that right away. Yeah.
Just wanted to see if I was the only one that missed that.
Yeah, that was I'm glad you brought it up because that was an interesting take in there. He's doing the same stare at her at her engagement party.
Yeah,
I love those. Creepy. That's a
love is creepy.
Join us next time when we discuss Groundhog Day from 1993. Stay tuned for our first impressions of this film.
You can rate and review this show anywhere podcasts are available. For those viewing in YouTube land, if you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the Talking Studios channel for all our exciting content, and follow us on Twitter at Talking Studios. Check out other shows by Talking Studios, including Keep Making Movies, where we explore micro-budget films, Limited Lexicon, where we play through text-based adventure games, and Get the Point, where we slowly reveal a movie poster and try to guess which movie poster it is. Got a question for us? Call the Talking Studios hotline at 201-467-8679 and leave a message. It may be featured on a future episode. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to Talking Pictures Trivia wherever fine podcasts are found.
Ding, 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 ding. Next week, we'll be discussing Groundhog Day from 1993. Tom, how was your watch?
I've liked this movie for a long time. I don't remember when my first watch was, but it certainly predated college. And it's a pretty interesting movie. When I first saw it, I think you indulged the fantasy of what you would do with that time if you were stuck in a time loop that seemed or was close to infinite. And then watching it again as a person who is very, very close to middle age / is middle-aged, it has a very different resonance, and it means a lot more to me now. I think this viewing was actually kind of deeply meaningful in the sense of recognizing just how kind of pointless a lot of ambition is, and that's what jumped out at me, as opposed to the fantasy of being able to perfect a day or something like that. It was far more admitting the futility of most things we do is actually pretty liberating. That was my first impression, 1000th impression, whatever you want to call it. Dan, how about you? How was your first watch?
Yeah, I would say that, thinking about it's a really good perspective on watching it. I can't remember the first time I watched it. And I remember just thinking about how fun it would be. But at the same time, as you mentioned, like watching it again at this age, it's so different. Like he's still like a man who doesn't have a family. He's still very ambitious and trying to like succeed in life. And he almost feels like he's like stuck in this rut, in this horrible situation that he got himself in. And he's doing like in this town. It's almost like being like in the worst place at the wrong time, and just it's like almost like realizing that he's in purgatory. And that's what I feel like in watching it at this age now, having a family and thinking about what it's like relative to when I saw it before. It's so different. But I think that it really kind of shows me that, it's almost like it's almost like I feel it's like all the stages of grief. He's, going through like being perplexed, not realizing what's going on, and then just he's in disbelief, and then he's almost trying to like get out of it, and realizing, well, maybe I can make the most out of this. But then it's all for all the wrong reasons, and it isn't until he does it for the right reasons that he then kind of has like full closure and being able to move on from this wretched stage of his life. Which I think that really, if anything, I'm sure that the moment that I always thought about, like, what is he thinking at the moment that he's finally out of it? He's like, I've grown so much and learned so much. Maybe this was like the best thing that ever happened to him. And I think that was kind of like something that I realized when I was younger thinking that, but it still came to that same conclusion here when I watched it again. How about you, Nick?
This is a movie I've always enjoyed. Just like Tom, I have no idea when the first time I saw it. Maybe it was in college, and I used to have like Comedy Central on all the time and all the cable channels on in the background. I have a feeling it might have been during that period of time, but it may have been before. I really don't know.
This is the 30th year anniversary. I was 10 years old when it came out. I have a feeling
Yeah.
I watched it around that time, or when it first came out, not in the theaters, but like probably soon after on TV.
VHS, or I was gonna say, yeah, I didn't know if it was TV or VHS.
Yeah, like HBO or something. Probably HBO. That's what I always think about. Whenever I watch a good movie, it was usually on HBO then.
Got
right
it.
after that Fuzz, that classic Fuzz you'd always watch.
So one of the things that always jumped out at me about this movie, I enjoy the comedic elements of it. I think it's really nice. Bill Murray's great, the banter, everything in every different phase he has. But the one thing that always really resonated with me was actually there's certain elements of this film that are really dark, and it could be easily overshadowed when you think back on it. But when you really focus on the film, there is some parts where he is just in pure misery. And that always jumped out at me, that it was pretty good in the balance of how all these different emotions happen throughout this film. I'm going to hold off there because I know we're going to go into it more next week, but I always thought that was a good way they played with the different stages. I think Dan was talking about that a little bit too. So hold tight till next week. We'll dig a little deeper.
Wow, Talking Studios